What in God's name was the Fed and some of your other agencies thinking when you allowed banks to debank customers for reputational risk? Are you kidding me?
What happens when a United States senator finally says out loud what millions of Americans have been thinking? Today, we're breaking down a moment on Capitol Hill that cut straight through the talking points and exposed a dangerous trend most of the media would rather ignore. Before we get into it, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss real analysis of what's happening in Washington. Without the spin, let's get into it.
We'll start our questions this morning with Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that courtesy. Madam Vice Chair, credit should be given when it is due. I remember, 3 or 4 years ago, Chairman Powell and others were giving a report on the economy. Inflation was 9%. Was gutting the American people like a fish. Stevie Wonder could have seen it coming. President Biden asked, and Congress consented, I didn't, that we start spending money like it had the value of Louisiana ditch water. Had President Biden, had we discovered life on Mars when President Biden was president, he would have sent it money, immediately. And I remember the Federal Reserve, represented by Chairman Powell, sitting here, and we're talking about what to do about it. And he explained his plans, and in so many words, I said, not going to work. I've read the white papers. You can get inflation down, but we're going to have to suffer unemployment of 7, 8, 9%. It didn't happen, did it? We had a soft landing. And the Federal Reserve was in part responsible, in the best sense of the word, for that. And we don't applaud that enough. And we can debate whether the chairman and the vice chairman and others should raise or lower interest rates, and what we should do about quantitative easing, and how many economists can dance on the head of the pin. But it's a fact. We had a soft landing. Thank God for it. Now, inflation is not down where we want, but 2.7% is a hell of a lot better than 9%, without having to suffer 7, 8, 9, 10% unemployment and the human misery that goes with it. So the Fed did something right.
In this Senate hearing, Senator John Kennedy did something refreshingly rare in modern politics. He gave credit where credit was due, and then he demanded accountability. Kennedy started by acknowledging the Federal Reserve's role in bringing inflation down from disastrous levels. Just a few years ago, inflation was crushing working Americans. Groceries, gas, rent, everything skyrocketed. Many economists said the only way out would be massive unemployment and real economic pain. That didn't happen. The Fed managed a soft landing. Inflation dropped without throwing millions of Americans out of work. And Senator Kennedy openly said, that deserves recognition. That's leadership. That's honesty. And that's not something you hear often in Washington. But then the tone changed. Kennedy pivoted to an issue that goes far beyond interest rates or economic theory, something that strikes at the heart of individual freedom in this country: debanking.
On the other hand, what in God's name was the Fed and some of your other agencies thinking when you allowed banks to debank customers for reputational risk. Are you kidding me? Why did you allow that to happen? Because you didn't like their politics, or you didn't like the products they made. I mean, do you think it would be fair? Senator Warren's not here, so I hesitate to talk about it. Senator Warren was a distinguished professor at Harvard University. Some people don't like Harvard. Some people don't like their politics. How could you possibly allow a bank to have the option? I'm not saying they did it, but to debank someone like Senator Warren, I'm using her as a hypothetical example, because you didn't like her politics. And you can say the same thing about gun manufacturers and oil and gas and anybody you don't like, and you let the banks do it. What in God's name were y'all thinking, Madam Vice Chair?
Well, Senator, I appreciate your concerns, and I share them. I was not the vice chair at the time
I know that.
decisions were made.
But your institution went along with it. The banks proposed it, and your institution sucked it up like a Hoover Deluxe.
In my view, debanking is never an appropriate activity. It is, every American in this country should have access to financial services, and they should not be limited from access to those services based on their political, religious beliefs, or their engagement in a particular business that may be disfavored but is legally
Let me tell you, folks, this isn't over yet. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Banks denying Americans access to financial services based on so-called reputational risk. In translation, political views, lawful businesses, or beliefs that powerful institutions don't like. And Kennedy asked the most important question of the hearing. What in God's name were you thinking? That question matters because access to banking isn't a luxury in modern America. You can't run a business, pay employees, or even function normally without it. When financial institutions start deciding who is acceptable based on politics or ideology, that's not capitalism, that's soft tyranny. Kennedy made it clear. Today, it's gun manufacturer. Tomorrow, it's oil and gas. The next day, it could be anyone who doesn't align with the political preferences of unelected regulators. That's not hypothetical. That's a warning. The vice chair tried to distance herself, saying she wasn't in the role when these decisions were made, but Kennedy wasn't buying it. Institutions don't get to dodge responsibility just because the nameplate changed. And here's the key point every American should understand. If banks can quietly cut off lawful citizens from the financial system, then constitutional rights don't mean much at all. You don't need to be conservative to see the danger here, but conservatives have been the ones sounding the alarm. This wasn't a viral clip just because it was fiery. It resonated because it spoke to a real concern that powerful systems are being used to pressure, punish, and silence Americans without due process. That's why this moment matters. As a patriot, I'll say this plainly. Government exists to protect citizens, not manage them. Banks exist to serve customers, not police beliefs. Senator Kennedy reminded Washington of something it desperately needs to hear. Freedom doesn't survive on autopilot. It survives because people are willing to stand up and say, no, this isn't acceptable. And the fact that this conversation is happening in public on the record is a good thing, but it's not over. If you want more clear-eyed coverage of what's really happening in Washington without corporate media filters, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who cares about freedom and accountability. This issue isn't going away, and neither are we. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.